So we've got a really, really wonderful panel here today. I'm very, very sorry to tell everybody here that the wonderful Katie has not been able to make it today. Her children are ill and she's not able to be here. Katie, we are sending you all our best wishes and just hope that they get well soon and that you're okay as well. But just to kick it off, we're going to be like having a conversation today, and an interactive conversation. So the team at Qwilr have done a wonderful job setting up this webinar. I am Mark. I am the CEO and co-founder of Qwilr, and I am your host today. And so we've got a bunch of really, really wonderful panelists. We've got Bethany. Do you want to give a little wave, Bethany? Hello. So Bethany is the CEO and co-founder of SenseSpark. Bethany, do you want to give like a little 20-second intro to SenseSpark?
Yeah, for sure. So SenseSpark is an AI-powered video platform. So you can make personalized video messages, think something like Vidyard or Loom, and you can either do them one-to-one, or you can use AI to take one video and personalize them at scale for a list of people you're sending it to, which just unlocks a lot more power to personalize your messaging. And we also have the ability to build SenseSpark into your integrations and automations and things like that.
SenseSpark is wonderful. We are very happy customers at Qwilr. We use it for onboarding messages. We use it for some outbound stuff. It's a really, really fantastic, wonderful tool. I'd also love to welcome Adam J. Adam is the CEO and co-founder of Revenue Reimagined. Adam, do you want to give a little 20-second blurb?
Yeah, I'd love to. We are also customers and lovers of SenseSpark. Revenue Reimagined is a go-to-market operating team, very different than a consulting team. We don't believe in giving startups pretty little slide decks. We do both strategy and execution to help drive predictable, responsible revenue growth by helping founders bridge their go-to-market gap. You can't build a strategy without starting with the foundation, and that's where we start.
Fantastic. And then we're also joined today by Nikki Lang. Nikki is a brand new enterprise AE at Deal. She's had a long and storied career. Nikki, do you want to give a little 20-second blurb?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm in my third week at Deal. Not my third week as an enterprise seller, but at Deal. So I'm still definitely onboarding and ramping and getting used to everything, but very exciting. I like everything I have learned and seen so far. If you are in the HR space and you need help with global expansion, hit me up. I'm your girl. And yeah, I came from previously, I was at Copy AI as a founding AE, so helped implement their go-to-market kind of sales-led enterprise strategy over there and had a lot of success. And yeah, now I'm at Deal. So I've been selling for about 14 years now.
Great. And so let's dive in today. So today, so expert panel, we've already done this part, bravo me. So this is going to be an interactive talk today. So we've got a bunch of different topics we're going to dive into, and the panelists will be debating different opinions, different things, different options as we go through. But please, everyone, get out your phones and use this QR code or go to the website and enter that code. As we go along, you're going to be able to vote on different parts of the questions that we talk about, different answers. And it's going to be really cool to see some of those answers filter in live. I will stop sharing once I sort of share the question and share the things in there. Awesome. I'm glad to see some thumbs ups and hearts are coming in here already. Bravo team. But as we go and sort of, go and do this, we're going to be able to have like, hey, as we discuss things, you better, sort of, give feedback and sort of share what you think that the right answer is here. We'll all debate amongst ourselves as we go along, and if there are questions, we'll sometimes, if we can, try to look at the chat and discuss them now. If not, we've got some time at the end for Q&A. So jump onto that. There'll be more sort of QR codes around, and Brendan in the chat will also be sharing the link so you can do this as well. This is great. Cool. Okay. So I think we're gonna kick this off. This is the first question. Now, as you'll see here right now, there's a whole bunch of zeros. There we go. One vote. Bravo, somebody. So we've got what's the first question we're going to sort of discuss here is what's the most effective way to gain initial access to a C-suite decision maker. So I'm gonna actually stop sharing so we're not sort of all wildly distracted by that beautiful, beautiful, beautiful screen. And I'm going to kick it over I'm going to kick it over to Nikki to get started here.
Yeah.
What's your hot take on the best way to sort of start a conversation with the C-suite?
So I'm going to give kind of a unique perspective here since all the other panelists do have a C in their title, like CEO, co-founder, right? As a mere rep, as a seller, it's going to be a lot different, like messaging and outreach coming from someone like a Bethany or an Adam who is reaching out C to C level. There's just more weight that kind of is carried with that title. So as a seller, one of my favorite strategies is always to leverage my C-suite to send out messaging and make that connection. So I know that doesn't like perfectly fall into any of the categories that are an option. But kind of like real world, what I actually do, if I know I need to get in touch with a C-level individual, I'm going to leverage my C-suite to do that. I will write the ghost email, I'll ghost write the email, send it to them. And a lot of times, even nowadays in a lot of orgs, the C-suite or certain people within the C-suite will have their own kind of SDR ghostwriter that will kind of manage these emails and outreach for them. So that's definitely something that I leverage if that's available.
Yeah, awesome. Bethany, what about you?
Yeah, I think Nikki makes a good point about like leveraging someone else. And I'd also say that expands to like referrals, asking for warm intros, things like that. I think if you're reaching out to the CEO specifically, like unless they have an executive assistant, every CEO is going to read every email they get, even if it's just a super quick skim. So I think email is a really strong channel. I mean, they're looking for reasons to delete your email and like not see it, but they will at least take a skim. And then I would also make a shameless plug that if you're going to send an email, and you can send a video using SendSpark or another tool, but just with a really specific, like, this is how we can help, and like a little like proof, like in there, whether it's like a screenshot of how your product helps or something like that in the video, that can add a lot of weight and help them see the value even without like taking a 30-minute meeting, if they can take a 30-second quick glance at the value.
Yeah. Adam, what about you? When you see someone, a CEO, and you're going to go reach out, like what's like?
Yeah. I'm going to piggyback a little bit off of both. To me, it's always referrals, right? Like, listen, Bethany's a real CEO. I'm a CEO of a 3-person consulting group. But at the end of the day, like, I do get pitched 100 times by people. And the only time I really read that email or take that call or take that meeting is when, I know Nikki, and Nikki's like, hey, this is going to add you a ton of value. Talk to such and such. Absolutely. But if you do want to stand out, this is whether it's hiring and you're interviewing with the CEO or cold calling and selling the CEO. I post about it all the time on LinkedIn. Video. So many people are not using it. Yes, you should use SendSpark, but even if you just record an MP4 on your phone, send a video, but make it relevant. Show that product, and in 20 seconds or less, how I could help you. I listen to every video I get. Like, it's because it's like, oh, you took the time to send a video. Like, I'm a sales leader, right? Like, I'm at least going to see what your video skills are.
Yeah. I mean, I think like from my side, and I think like just to be boring here, I totally agree with Bethany. Like, I think I do check my email, and I am 100% looking for reasons to delete your email. And holy wow, are most emails like terrible? Like, it's like they're so bad, and it's
But
so
Mark,
obvious
because you're the CEO of, you must suffer from this, and I could solve it today.
Exactly. And I think you can tell when someone has spent like a meaningful time like doing research and being thoughtful about it. Doesn't mean I'm going to respond, but it does sort of give you a much sort of higher chance. I think the same sort of with LinkedIn. I think you actually can use those strategies well, but like a referral, someone I know and trust being like, hey Mark, you should have a meeting with Nikki, like deal has like totally turned our company around, is just that's just such an easy sort of way in. And I would also similarly say, like, if that email comes to me, and to piggyback from Nikki, and it comes to me from a CEO of another company, I know this sounds weak, but I will take that more seriously than if it comes from an SDR or somebody else.
Yeah. And there's a lot of companies kind of popping up now that are facilitating these referrals, right? Like I can't name any of them off the top of my head right now, but I'm seeing this trend happening where they'll send you like a list of companies that they're looking to break into. And then anyone that you have a relationship with at these companies, they're going to incentivize you to kind of make that introduction, make that connection. And I think people are realizing that a really effective way to kind of cut through all the noise right now is that firsthand referral, and companies are like willing to pay for it because it's so effective.
Yeah, I mean, I think like that there are companies, I don't think I haven't asked for approval, so I won't name drop in this thing, but there are companies out there and you'll see these things on LinkedIn where someone says, I'm an advisor to company X. And like a bunch of times those advisors are basically like referral engines. So they might be getting some, this very much is inside baseball, inside SaaS selling land. But like those people are basically like, they're often power users of the product. They're advisors, they've maybe been given some equity or some cash or some sort of thing as well. But like part of the reason that they have that little advisor tag is that they're like, hey, I've got this, as like a top tier customer, will you be a reference for me, like on a sale, like a reference call if I need that? But also I can see this person in your network, like that company is looking for a solution in our space. Would you make an introduction to me? And I think like that type of leveraging those sort of advisors or people in that sort of broader network and top tier customers to sort of go and do that and giving them some sort of special place in your org can be is an interesting sort of new way. And I think some companies are having like actually a huge amount of success with it. So it's something we're sort of thinking about to some degree inside Qwilr. All right, I'm going to attempt to go back to sharing the page. Has everyone got this again? Wow, look at that change. I think there early on we saw a few different things here, but this has been, I think this has been a core thing here. I suppose like I will say that like cold call is one of those funny things that we do know that it can work, but it's definitely not where I would lead with. And events is also one of those funny ones where we haven't touched on it at all, but like there are certain industries where events rule, and it is absolutely fantastic, and you do super duper well out of that. Okay, let's roll along to our next question. All right, Adam, I'm going to start with you this time, mate. You're approaching a target account and you need to break into it. This is like an essential one. You have to break into it. Like, and let's say this is like, at least a good sized company, right? Like it's, in the hundreds, maybe not thousands, but in the hundreds of people. Like, how are you thinking about breaking into that conversation? Are you going, up to the top, or are you going down bottom and going up from there?
Top down every single time. If it's this type of account and we're going to exclude SMB, right? I'm going to step over to Nikki's world and we're talking enterprise and we're talking real value and we're talking like you're not getting this deal without C-level buy-in. I'm sorry if I'm going to offend here. I'm pretty direct, but there is no SDR, AE, or manager that is going to carry the weight to get you that meeting. I would absolutely start top down with the C-suite, multi-thread the entire C-suite, not just one person, but I'm not going bottoms up at all.
So can I give a little bit of another view, maybe?
Yeah,
So
please.
normally I totally agree. I like top down. However, my one caveat is if it's such a large organization that there's multiple business units, like because I have sold into businesses where there's 200,000 employees. Like I'm not going to reach the CEO of that company.
Fair.
So first I'm going to figure out like which business unit I need to sell into, because a lot of times they have their own budget. And then I'm going to figure out who the decision maker is on that for that business unit specifically. And it's most likely not going to be a C-suite person. It's still a decision maker though, which I think is why it's aligned with the top down approach. But I think like when we're thinking really, really large, across a very large organization, you almost have to treat it like a large city of a bunch of smaller orgs. So, the bigger the company, the more you'll find different pockets of budget across the org. And then you need to find who owns the budget in the right business unit.
Bethany.
Sorry. Well, I was responding to something in chat. So
And you know what? I'm going to jump in. You keep responding in chat. Like you're going to throw it in 60 seconds. I suppose like from my side and my only pushback here. So look, top down. I totally agree. Top down. My only like little caveat here is, Qwilr, we have a, yeah, this has some, funny connotations with sometimes, but like we do have like a PLG motion. You can come into Qwilr, you can self-serve, you can go through that like every week where there are hundreds of customers who do not speak to a sales rep who convert into Qwilr customers. And like you can find a bottoms up path with that sometimes. So we have an example of like, there was like a large restaurant bookings company. I'll let you guess which one, sort of came in and, one AE signed up, started using it, loved it, had a great time. Then like brought in a colleague, so two of them, or maybe it was three, were using Qwilr, and then like of course like someone in Qwilr eventually realized, oh my gosh, this is like large company, and then they took that success that they'd already had and leveraged that into a conversation with the VP. And I think like having some proof points, hey, look, your team is already using this. We'd love to show you what we could do, blah blah blah. And we've had similar ones before where like, one country has done something here and another sort of group over here has done something, and you can start to see like, again, like it's small, it's like, 3 reps here, 2 reps here, etc. But like taking that, and sort of levering that up into like a large conversation. But again, your goal is to go to the top, like the decision maker is up there, and they're sort of, it's almost more like you're using them as proof points in your journey to sort of go to the top. So I would always like the strategy of building many champions to try to then get your way into the top. I think it can work, but it's often heaps and heaps of work. And I just think you're better focusing on the top. Okay, I'm going to throw to Bethany.
Yeah. I'm going to add a couple points to that too, because I think a lot of people think you should go bottoms up and maybe you should, but there's so many things that you don't think about that make your life harder. Like, because maybe you got a bunch of people, great proof points, and then the leader's like, well, great. Sounds like everyone's happy. I'm going to go back to a real problem now. And so you might actually now have 3 users instead of the whole organization. And so it has to be part of your true strategy if you're going bottoms up. Otherwise, I think top down is good. And when Adam's talking, I realized actually one thing we've been doing last week is going even higher up, where we're literally, emailing people's investors to ask for intros and stuff like that. So I think that like, if you can do top down, do it. If you can't, then bottoms up, but it's got to be really strategic.
So I just want to add one more thing. Something that has worked really beautifully for me in the past is when I'm building a really big, long deal. Something that we will do is absolutely get in touch and get in front of power. But as we're doing that, we are also talking to the people on the ground, getting testimonials about what their current situation is like. Because a lot of times there's this disconnect from the reps' everyday lived experience versus what leadership thinks is happening in the org. So depending on the product that you're selling, like when I was selling like a RevOps and when I was at Clary, we would talk to the AEs and ask them about their experience within Salesforce, right? And their frustrations. And then we would build kind of this testament and have these quotes from their own reps that we would then show leadership. And they would be like, oh, wow, I had no idea that our people felt that way. And they really, really appreciated the work that we were doing in the background to build this business case from the ground up as we were in front of power. So like, it was this beautiful kind of symbiotic relationship there.
I think, look, if you can do both at the same time and you are just a wizard of that, I think that's a very, very special place to be. Okay. All right. So we ended up in back. So I think probably roughly where certainly like the panelists here, I think we're pretty firmly on top down. But thank you all for all of your votes so far. Again, if you have joined and you have not found the thing, you can go to menti.com and use the code 76012301. It's sort of up here, and you can go and join that and come and vote. All right, it is time for the next question. So what's the most critical trait or skill for engaging and selling to the C-suite? So we've got a few options listed here. There's business acumen, there's active listening, there's problem solving, executive presence, negotiation, and market insight. Okay, Adam, mate, I'm going to throw to you for a first hot take in this debate. And I'm going to stop sharing. I love the little bubbles. This is fantastic.
Yeah, the bubbles are cool. I like the bubbles.
Menti.com. There's a nice promo for you. So team, what do we think?
So I don't think it's one. I have to give two on this, and it's executive presence and active listening. If you show up to the C-suite and you cannot, for lack of better terms, hold your own, speak properly, have that overall executive presence, you are going to lose the attention of that C-suite fast, and you're going to lose your credibility, and you are never going to get it back. Coupled with that, you have to be able to listen actively, understand what they're saying, arguably repeat those words back to them and take what they're saying and shift your presentation exactly to their pain points and not what you think you need to say, or you are also going to be walked out of the room.
Nikki, what about you?
I'm going to go with business acumen. I do think that executive presence is like barrier to entry. Like if you don't have that, like you're not even getting in the room. So like that has to be a given. But once you're in the room and hopefully you know how to carry yourself, you have to speak to how this product is going to affect the business, to the decision makers, how it's going to impact the business, when it's going to impact the business. If you don't understand kind of what is most important to them and how to effectively communicate that in relation to the service or product that you're offering, you're not going to get anywhere. So business, like executive presence is not enough to get the deal done. It's enough to block or stall the deal. That's just kind of bare minimum. And then I think with business acumen, you can seal the deal.
Bethany, go.
If I have to pick one, I'm going to say active listening because really what Adam said, right? Where you're like able to dig in and uncover pain points and then customize what you're showing to them. I think it's also just really one of the ones that could just kill you if you don't have it. And, you know, if you're just talking over and trying to show it and you can see people's eyes glaze over and they're like, this is so great, and never talk to you again. So I think if I had to pick one, I'll go with active, but obviously you'd rather have them all if you could.
Yeah, I mean, I think sort of going through this, like there's a degree of they all do matter and they all play together. I'm with Nikki that if you I think there are some things like if you don't have like the business acumen to know what you're talking about, like in that sort of space, it's hard to do well if you don't have the exec presence and carry yourself like a professional and just seem like you belong in the room. I think that can also make it hard. I've shared a link. It's exec presence is a funny thing, and I don't think it's actually that well talked about. There is like one article that I think is like relatively interesting in this sort of side there. It doesn't really talk about it from a sales perspective, more an internal one, but it does have some interesting thoughts there. And I think that you know, I think there are still the fundamentals of sales, right? Where it's like if you can't be showing that like I am solving a meaningful problem for you and I am like going to help you like on this journey, and you know I have understood by active listening, I have understood your particular problem and you are a unique snowflake and I'm able to solve that problem for you. I think it's on this. I would say like aside from the exec presence, can't pass go, sort of, you know, do not collect $200, etc. Like I would say problem solving is still one for me that I think is that. But again, all of these things mix and match together. I'm going to flip back to the slide. I'm keen to see where all the bubbles sort of eventually ended up. Any final thoughts from the team? Whoa, active listening.
That's awesome. I think like problems, I thought it's interesting that you said problem solving, Mark. In my immediate thought there was like, you better have that figured out before you get in front of the C-suite, right? Like to me, that's a prerequisite, but it happens earlier on in the process. Like by the time we get in front of them and we're talking to them, then I think some of the other ones come more into play. But I love how no one said negotiation.
One person did, right?
Yeah.
1%?
One person. Yeah, I mean, I think, what do we think about that?
2 people.
I mean, that's procurement. Like, I don't know. When we're selling to the C-suite, it's like we better have built a business case, and then negotiation, like they usually knock that off to somebody else.
Yeah.
100% agree. This
Yeah.
is not a space to negotiate. This is, being a good seller is you need to wear a bunch of different hats. And sometimes you need to be a massive hard ass in negotiation. This is not that zone. This is like, I'm empathetic. I understand you. I have expertise. I am here to like solve a problem for you, etc. You can turn into a hard ass and and have a nice big fight with procurement later. And maybe they don't even have procurement. Like maybe it's with the same person. But I think you can. It's not the thing that matters. I think initially. Cool.
I think it's interesting how many people picked market insight, and now thinking about that, I do think that's maybe more important than I initially gave it credit for, because so much of what you're doing is you're like recommending things that maybe because you've talked to 100 people in their shoes over the last few months, but they only know what they're doing. So I think there's a level, I would say actually maybe that's equally important as active listening. It's like you hear what their problem is, and then you know how other people are solving it and how you can help, which maybe is problem solving.
Great. God, what the bubbles are great. Okay, away from the bubbles, on to the next question. We're gonna keep rolling along here, team. By the by, some people have been asking questions or have been raising hands or things like this. I know I'm doing a terrible job as a host. There's too many different zones where things are going on. We're gonna have an FAQ, not FAQ. We're gonna have like a questions sort of section at the end, and you'll be able to ask your questions again if they haven't already been answered. I'm just like very happy to dive into everything. So, okay. In today's selling environment, 2025, we're in a new era, maybe kind of similar to the old era, but like, what is the most important thing to demonstrate when selling to execs? And so we've got 4 buckets here. I know there's more buckets than this, but there are 4 buckets here that we've got. So cost savings, expected impact, time to value, and vendor reputation. Okay, I'm going to throw to Bethany first this time. I'm not sure I've thrown first to you yet, mate. So over to you.
I would say expected impact is the most important, because that's the reason that they're buying. Like all the other things are important, but they're more supportive for like, what do you really want to get out of this?
Yeah, I think, well, yeah. Nikki, what about you?
Yeah, and this one this one is a little bit hard for me because it's like all of them, but I do think that expected impact and cost savings are kind of like the like 2 sides of the same coin, right? Like it's always going to come down to either how we're saving them dollars or how we're going to make them more dollars, right? So whether you call that impact or cost savings, I think again it's like the same thing, just in 2 different ways. Um, but it's all going to come down to that. How are we going to save the money or make the money?
I think just to push on that a little bit, like I would certainly say that definitely in tech, but I also think broadly that like late 23 through early 24 was like the land of cost savings. Like I think there was a degree of like, can you show, like, I mean, certainly in Qwilr, how we were positioning things, we were talking more about like, hey, like you can use Qwilr and like your sales reps don't need to have DocuSign, and they also don't need to have a sales enablement platform. You can use that. You can like, here are things that you can save money on when you move to Qwilr. Like we have all this functionality internally. Not only do you get all these other benefits, but you also can like cut this cost and cut this cost. And like, that was like an important part of the process. And I think showing savings was like had a moment in the sun. I think which was very different to the glory days of 2021. But I think like I think we're shifting back a little bit, and I would say like expected impact. I totally agree. Like they are sort of the same different sides of the same coin, but I would say expected impact is one that I think is becoming more and more important. And I think execs are being a bit more bullish, and the animal spirits are sort of getting a bit more pro growth. And I think that that's where things are leaning. But here's just some Australian with a hot take. Adam, what do you think?
I have nothing else to add. It's expected impact. How am I going to drive you business? And while it might not always be cost savings, it's that return on investment, for lack of better terms, right? I'm going to spend X, you're going to deliver Y, And I'll throw a slightly contrarian take in there. Time to value. How quickly are you going to deliver it? Because I don't want to spend 100 grand to not see anything for, 6, 7, 8 months, but it's all about that expected impact.
Yeah, and I think that there's been some very creative stuff around the time to value piece. Like we've been seeing some interestingly structured contracts around like get access for this period, prove it out, and then roll on to a like we saw a 15-month contract where it's like pay 3 months now. We're gonna by the end of that period, we're gonna have proved it out, and then you can instantly roll on to a 12-month contract after, which is like an interesting one from a CAC payback cost, says the nerdy CEO. But like there's like I think there's like interesting things you can do to sort of like how I'm gonna like prove to you that we're gonna do time to value very well. Nikki and Bethany, feel free to jump in again, but I'm going to go back to the.
Yeah, I'm curious what other people said.
Whoa. Here we go.
No one cares about vendor reputation.
That's funny. I mean, again, I think vendor reputation is almost like same thing with executive presence. It's like it can kill you, but it can't make the deal, right? Like it can kill the deal, but it can't make the deal. Yeah, I mean, I agree with impact. I mean, that's what we're all here to do, right? Is prove how our product is going to make an impact on the business. I think it's interesting because I think sometimes, and I do agree, Mark, like we're in a little bit different time. We're in like the AI era right now, right? And I was just selling AI at Copy. It was this combination of how is AI going to impact the business, but then to unlock budget, we needed to tie ROI to cost savings. So it was like this because sometimes impact is really hard to measure. It's very hypothetical in the future, right? So if you have a way to kind of tie both together, like the way that we would tie to cost savings, unfortunately, and this is probably not what people want to hear, is headcount. Like we can do what 5 people used to be able to do now with 2 people plus AI. So big picture is impact, but to get budgetary approval, this is how we're going to save you money now.
Okay, rolling along. What is the biggest mistake that reps make when selling to C-suite decision makers? Now, this is one where if you're on the Menti app, you can write in a response here. So you can write various things in. You can also drop it into the chat on Zoom if you want. But I'm going to throw to you, Nikki. What's like the biggest, like when you, oh, this app's so great, arrogance. Like, what do you, Nikki, think when you sort of think about it? It might even be like looking back on, awkward teenage selling years. But like, what do you sort of think of some of the big steps?
Yeah. So this is such a good question. My style of selling is like a very familiar style. I'm just like, oh, hey, we're buddies, we're friends. I become very like cozy and close to my buyer. So I think one thing that I did in the past was assume that I could be that same kind of chummy seller with the executive team. And it was not met with the same level of reception as it normally is. Like I realized I like to be like a very casual seller. I'm like, okay, let's like take all the masks off, pretenses. Let's have like a real conversation about what's really going on. Right. Well, when you get into that room with the executives, like you do have to button up a little bit more, and as casual and fun as I like to be normally as a seller, like that's when I have to put like my big girl jacket on and show up, like come correct and really kind of and step into that role. So I think for me, something that I have done is just be too familiar and then not be taken as seriously as I should have been.
What about you, Bethany?
So for me, and remember, like I'm the CEO of like, an early stage startup. So I'm going to be different than like
Yeah.
CEO of a massive company. But for me, it's when people are too high level or abstract. Like when they come into the calls and they're like, tell me about your goals for Q2 or 2025. And you're like, guy, like that's not the conversation I want to have. I want to focus on like the specific topic at hand. But I think you think like, oh, CEO's thinking about these things, but you know, your head is maybe thinking about that at some point, but also if you're buying a product, it's probably focused on something a little bit more tangible. And then it almost feels like, you know, a waste of time or not so relevant.
Adam, by the by, there's a little thing I can press space to group responses, and I'm gonna try this, and I have no idea what's gonna happen. So
Do it.
Let's see.
lol.
Upgrade now.
Upsell. Enter your credit card.
It's that PLG motion. Click here. It goes back to what I said earlier. I think when you start making assumptions that you know what the problem is, you know how you're going to solve it, you know what this executive wants. It's to me the biggest mistake that I see. But I'll second what Bethany says. Like, and this is whether you're selling to the C-suite or anyone, to be honest, y'all. Like going in there with, tell me about what your goals are. My goals are for the revenue to go up and to the right. Like we all know this. You don't need to ask. My goal is to get the most productivity, the most out of your tool. Like, don't ask questions you should know the answers to. It's the same as like, hey, Bethany, where are you calling in from? It's like, do some basic research, y'all.
Yeah. I think for me, I suppose like one of the ones that I had early on so I was at Google for a bunch of years in Australia and then Southeast Asia and then New York. And I think one of the ones that I had that held me up, frankly, more than it should have, like I should have realized this sooner, was like the C-suite isn't like, if you do well in that meeting, you're not done, right? Like it's not like you've like achieved, like it's like, man, the CEO really likes me. It's like, cool. They are like one part of the buying process. And I think like, you know, with especially with like large complicated partnerships or large enterprise deals, there's often like, you know, 4 or 5 people. Now, like obviously it does help to have the CEO, but it's like, honestly, it's not like some magic perfect thing that like once you've got them, you know, tick, we're all done here. Like you need to have like whoever is like the leader who's in charge of that team. You need to have like within that team, there will be some IC who is like, everyone is like, this IC kind of magically keeps this team all working. You need them to be on board. You kind of need to figure out like who the real players are inside, and maybe there's a finance piece or some procurement piece, or who knows, like depends on the org. But I think the thing that I made a mistake with earlier, which was like, man, I was like, I nailed that meeting. I did so well. I was very charming and I convinced them of X, Y, and Z. And now I'm just like waiting for like the commission check to arrive. Like that's sort of not how it works. I think, especially with complicated deals where you are sort of going to the C-suite, and there frankly is a C-suite, etc. Like you do need to know that the people who actually make the C-suite being on board is great, but they're often, you know, only one part of that process, and treating everybody in that process with the same level of professionalism and respect, right? Like I think like if they think like, oh, they've won the CEO over and now they're just being a big like jerk to me and trying to bully me around, like you ain't gonna get that deal. Like you need to be like empathetic and understanding and professional to sort of everybody throughout the process, and, you know, try to help them, you know, make their life better, which is what we're trying to do in sales. Okay. So any other final like jump ins on that side, gang?
Yeah, I'll throw in. So because I feel like one thing I said that was bad is being like so open-ended and broad. One way that you can get around that in practice, or that at least you know I do, is sometimes making like an incorrect assumption, or one that you hope that like right, where you could be like, you know, hey, most people when they want to see this are looking at, you know, X, is that right? Or is there anything you want to add? And so they don't have to like start at 0. You're kind of giving them something and they can either be like, yeah, but almost every time they're like, well, not exactly, let me tell you. And it just feels a little bit smoother.
I'm definitely seeing a lot of like wasting their time and just sort of like being respectful on that sort of time there, and like, yeah, you know, untimely and yeah, all this sort of like core things here. Super interesting. We'll sort of you know, share all this stuff out as we go on. Okay, and so I'm like 90% sure this is the final question. We'll find out. What's the number one opportunity for sales teams to reach decision makers in 2025. It's like a new year, a new era. Like things are genuinely changing in sales. Adam, mate, where does your head go to when you think about this? Like, what are you thinking about? What are the teams that you're working with on their strategy? Like, what are they sort of thinking about and excited about it in this area?
So super bullish on go to network, using referrals, using that network. Warm introductions carry so much more weight. And listen, I'm a huge fan of cold outbound, right? I think it works when done well. But at the end of the day, nothing is going to work better than the one of the three of you sending me a note and saying, hey, saw this cool product that I thought would be beneficial for you. I know Nikki over at Deal. Would you be cool if I made an introduction? 9 times out of 10, unless I'm really, really not interested at all, I am going to take that conversation. And I could tell you, we have probably 9 different tools that we use at RR. Everyone started with an introduction from someone who's like, this is what you should use.
Awesome. Nikki, what about you?
LinkedIn. LinkedIn, man. If you are not active and visible on LinkedIn, why? What are you doing? Come on. It's not that scary. Guys, I'm telling you. I started posting 5 in August. So what is that? 6 months ago, 5, 6 months ago. It has changed like how I do business. I'm telling you. Like I have decision makers, CEOs, C-suite going to my inbox. Like there's just nothing like it. You don't have to be, but I really, really, really recommend you be visible on LinkedIn. Have a point of view, know what talk about what you know, talk about what you love, create some presence, some authority. And even if they're not going to fall into your inbox, maybe that's not realistic. Even when you do outreach, they're going to your LinkedIn to see who you are.
100%.
Right? Like that's immediately how is this person credible?
Yeah.
Who is this? So if you don't have a LinkedIn presence, like it can hurt you. And especially like, let's not even get into like the job side of things, but that's my, it has totally changed how I sell.
I mean, I just need to jump in and give the biggest +1 ever. If you write me a cold email and it's got an awesome SendSpark in there, and I'm like, okay, like I'm interested, like I'm like on the edge here. Every single modern like salesperson / CEO / exec has like an email client that lets you very quickly click on their LinkedIn and find out who they are and look at them and be like, I'm not talking to this person. Like, or like, oh wow, that's super interesting. Oh wow, Nikki has 10 million followers. But I think you can but you can go through this thing and be like, I think there is a real thing about like genuinely, that's another spot where you can just make it easy for yourself to do well there. And you don't need to be like, I think it helps like genuinely like I'm spending a lot more time like thinking about like my LinkedIn presence as a personal thing, like as a CEO. I know Bethany like thinks about it, like everyone like this is a thing we all take seriously. But like it is also just, I think even just the basics of just being there and seeming credible and having a good profile is like genuinely very, very important. And it is quite a powerful way. You'd be amazed at how many people in your network, even in my network, frankly, were like, wait, Qwilr does that? And I'm like, yes, I've been doing this for years. What do you mean? Like, sort of like, I think it can be super, super valuable. Adam, wait, sorry. Yes, Bethany. No, who have I missed so far?
Adam went first. Adam said network. And I super agree with both, like LinkedIn, network. Very strongly agree. One I'll add is signals. I think that over the last year, the signals you can track have just gotten better and better to really understand buyer intent. And even like every week, I feel like it gets better to, there's new tools to now stack signals in different ways. And then that lets you know the timing, the interest, and make a super relevant pitch so that when you do reach out, like it just feels good. It's not like, hey, you're in my ICP. It's like you've got a little bit more substance. And I think that it's just been a big unlock over the last year that you can get information you couldn't have gotten before. And I think it's going to keep evolving in 2025.
what just to try to be valuable for a hot second, what signals, like what sort of tools do you use? What signals, like what's some of the stuff that you guys actually use day to day? I've got one that I'm kind of enamored with currently that I'll share, but Bethany, what do you actually use?
Yeah, I'll give a couple. So one is like if you install RB2B or something like that to identify website visitors, then you not only know the first time someone's on your website, but if they come back and like visit pricing pages or do other things, you can track all of that. And so you can pick like hot pages or stack that. And then another is social signals, especially if you're selling to a space where people use LinkedIn. And so you can track them like engaging with certain posts, following competitors, talking about a certain topic. I actually just had another webinar today with Trigify, and they were showing off their platform. There's so much cool intent signals you can do. So I want to give them a quick shout out.
I want to add one thing. There is a trend and big push happening right now to get founders, CEOs, C-suite, to get them posting on LinkedIn, to get them a presence on LinkedIn. And like, if they're not, they're getting a lot of pressure from the people around them. Like, you need to have a presence on LinkedIn as a part of our brand. So when they are on LinkedIn, that is an opportunity for all of us to get and engage with them, to get into their comment section, to reply to them, and they become familiar with you. They start, like, you notice as a poster, you notice the people who continuously interact and engage with your content. So it's not just you posting the original content and being a thought leader or whatever. It is absolutely going out and finding all of the decision makers within your book of business who are now just starting out on LinkedIn and getting in front of them.
I'm going to give one little shout out to a tool that we've been using recently, which is quite fun, which is one called Sumble. It's like a little AI tool that reads every single job ad ever posted, and often job ads will call out like what tech the team uses, and so you can now very easily figure out like what tech stack various or tools or integrations or like sales methodologies or all sorts of different things that companies have, anything that's sort of talked about inside a job ad. And when we like launch a new integration, so like, if we go and like we're doing like an upgraded thing to a different type of Salesforce instance that we can now support, but we also did like this thing with HubSpot or Zoho or Pipedrive or other sort of CRMs. You can just be like, well, actually, like we know we do very well in these industries, so let's just look at those industries, and we do very well in the US, Australia, UK, blah, 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 and be like, cool, these industries, these countries who use this CRM, bang, you've got a nice little list of people, and then you can start to think about, hey, who on the C-suite, how about you sort of go about approaching them and all that sort of stuff on that side there. Okay, so thank you all so much for participating. There's a few more sort of things here. Now, before we dive in, there is this there's a really great resource. If you go to Qwilr.com/JEP, there's like a joint execution plan. This is like how we inside Qwilr work with execs and work with C-suite people to sort of work on getting the deal. This isn't so much in the very, very first meeting, but as we sort of move that meeting towards closing, this has been put together by a bunch of experts. And we're really proud of it. So if you want to go check that out, please do go and check that out. So Qwilr.com/JEP. But now, like, we're gonna jump over to Q&A. So I think we've got about like 10 minutes left. So I'm going to stop sharing and we're going to go across here. So if you want to use the webinar chat, that's fine. But Zoom does have a wonderful Q&A feature. I can see a question already in there. Okay, and so Alex has got the first question here. I mostly work with CMOs. My go-to is to present our event schedule and ask them what aligns, like what event aligns. I try and keep it stupid simple. Like, what would you recommend to improve on that? So Alex, this is I sort of yeah, so I guess they're sort of saying, hey, like, here's our events, here's what we're going to, like, what I'm going to be asking, how do I, are you going to be there and go on from there? I mean, if that's well, sorry, I'll throw it to the panel. Does anyone on the panel have thoughts on that? I'll jump into my hot take. I think like if your goal, I mean, I don't mind it. If your goal is to like say, hey, we've got like, here's the events that we're going to, the events that we're sponsoring, that could be like, I think obviously if you can get them face to face, that's great. That's like, not, and it's a slightly different way of approaching it. I still think it's kind of, I suppose I'd be interested to ask more questions to you. It's kind of like making it's maybe being slightly presumptive that they want to sort of go to those things, but I guess maybe the CMOs in your industry do sort of go to them. So I don't know. I think it seems a little bit different. So I'm open to it. But yeah, does anybody else have either feel free to jump into this topic, or anybody else have a question, please drop it into our Q&A or into the webinar chat. And gang, I don't know if you've seen any questions in there that you want to jump into.
So, okay, so Justin was saying in the chat, and I have a strong take on this one, so sorry if I'm yelling and with all my exclamation points. Commission only Salesforce or salary plus commission? Like, as a seller who has been in the game for a long time, I would never take a commission only position, not because I am so unsure of my own sales skills. It's because I've been around and I know that even the best sales skills will not work for if there's no product market fit, if there's, poor leadership, if the company goes under. That's just way too much risk for me as a seller, when there's always going to be risk when I go to a new company, because even with all my due diligence, I could, go to the wrong place at the wrong time. So commission only is way, way, way too risky. As a top seller, as someone who's been selling for a while, I would never consider that.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like, I actually, that's funny because like I thought it was going to be a different question, which is like commission versus salary only, which is like another like hot topic in like tech land. There are some places that don't offer comp and they just have a salary on that side.
Nikki, you got a hot take on that too, don't you?
I do.
We have tried this at Qwilr. It is not what we are doing anymore. If that gives you a clear opinion, we sort of tried it for like a couple of months and we're like, this sucks. I think, I mean, I think it can work. And I know there's a couple of big companies in Australia like Qwilr and others, at least they used to for many, many years, operate this way. Typeform operated this way for a long time, although I don't think they do anymore.
Klarna.
Klarna?
Klarna does not pay commission, only salary, and it's not high enough to ever consider it. This is the problem when that happens. Okay, I'm sorry. Tell me if I'm
great, rant away.
Okay, so this is the problem when that happens. You won't get top reps because they know that they're going to max out at whatever that salary is. So like even if it's 200K, like top reps are going to be like, well, there's no potential upside for me. So that's like an easy way out. If I want to like slide by, like I'll do that and just sit pretty. But if I'm like ready to knock it out of the park, like I would not take that option, because I'm always going to bet on myself, except for commission only, to hit that upside. Now, however, there was a circumstance where I did take commission salary only for a period of time. And that's when I was a founding AE and there was no proven sales process yet. Like I had to figure out the sales process myself. So I took a guarantee. It was a very nice one until the sales process was proven. We had some numbers around what the quota could be. Then it was switched over to a 50-50 split when I was confident that I would make more than what that salary was. So in that case, like when we're figuring out the sales process and what those numbers should be, I think that it's reasonable, but it needs to be hefty.
In that case, you're saying that you were like base salary only and figure sales process and then commission. Yeah, we did that at SenseSpark too, to be honest. Like we had for probably just under a year, like salespeople were base, and then now there's commission elements because we more I mean, you can't do that. Like if you're an early stage founder and you don't have evidence that you can like sell things, you can't put people on commission. Or like I've seen other people do commission only for that, and you're like, do you not care if this person's
doing? Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
No, I agree. I mean, I think it's just like, it's frankly rude. And it's like, I don't know. I think commission only kind of speaks like a sort of negative vibe towards the seller in a funny way. I think that because also like there'll be times where it's just like sales has ebbs and flows. There'll be a month that's a bad month. Like that happens. Like it's just, like that's a thing that will occur. And you don't want someone to be like, oh wait, I just can't pay my rent this month. Like it's just insane. Like I think you sort of need to sort of have something there. Steve asked about like, what's the preferred split? we've done a variety of things. It kind of depends. It depends on a whole bunch of stuff. I think you kind of, I suppose the way I've ended up is you want the base salary to just kind of make the rep just not really think about it and just be focused on their work. Like if the base salary is so low, like a 70-30, where it's 70% commission, 30% base, and that base ends up being so low that they're just kind of a bit stressed about money, and they're always thinking about money, and they're thinking they're trying to change jobs or take a second job. Like that's a disaster. You just want the base to be, and look, 50-50 is pretty common. I think Qwilr is like 55 base, 45, some sort of thing, like slightly more than 50-50, but like, and obviously you can go uncapped, you can go like earn heaps more than that. But like you just kind of want that base to be enough that they're not stressed about it. Like if they have a down month, it's not sort of the end of the world type sort of thing.
The other thing you need to think about, sorry, when you are trying to build something that is attractive to reps, is you have to realize how sensitive reps are to the market in terms of like, they're going to go where they're going to make the most money. Like reps in general are not the most loyal because like we're a little bit money driven, which you want your reps to be money driven. Like that's where you get the results from. So you have to be very aware and sensitive to the market, like what the market is paying. Because if you are paying below market, you will immediately lose all of your best reps and you will keep the mediocre reps. So like you got to pay attention to what the market is paying.
So there's one more question here from Lee, which is, we sell enterprise deals to large organizations and it takes forever, all caps, lots of stakeholders, multiple C-suite folk to convince and get on board. I'm not an expert on Qwilr, but can we use it to walk multiple stakeholders through multiple stages of the sales process? Thank you for this absolute softball, Lee. Just like a threat to be answering a question like this. You'll get your commission later. I think that's one of the big things we think about a lot at Qwilr is that, it's that sort of conversation about like the C-suite isn't the only buyer. Like there are multiple buyers on here. One of the things we love to sort of talk about and like train and work with our like customers on is you can build a proposal that like different people who view it, like different buyers have different desires. And so if you come into this, like into a proposal, like, like there might be some people who've been with you the whole way through, and there are others who are jumping in sort of late stage. And if you're like the legal person, like if you're the finance person, you don't want to look at like all the legal terms and whatever else. You just want to jump to the numbers, understand that, and understand various other things there. Maybe you want to have like an ROI section and be like, okay, I can sort of see what this is. If you're the legal person, you want to be like, cool. Where are the terms? Like, what's this? We need to redline things, etc. And if you're jumping into it late, you might be like, what even is this? What's this about? The thing that a lot of people in Qwilr have been using is if they're using a call recording software like Gong, they're doing a little snippet of like the demo being like, hey, here's the demo we did with Bethany and her team about like our product and how it works. And there's like a 10-minute little product demo embedded, like little video embedded in the Qwilr page. So again, it's gonna be like, oh, I get it. This is this, and this is how it's going to work. And that's really great. And so having a mix of, again, the nice thing with Qwilr page being a website is you can click on a section, it can expand out or it can link out to other things, but giving space for all of the relevant buyers to be there. And then of course with Qwilr, you can just like have a mutual action plan that is like, the ability for you to sort of, work on that together and be like, hey, here's what we're doing, here's what you're doing. And it's sort of all coming together. Bye-bye, Adam. Sorry to have not said a proper farewell to him. But I do want to say, everybody, thank you so much for coming along today. It was an absolute pleasure having this with you. If there are more questions, I and the Qwilr team will try to answer a bunch of them async. We'll send out a video of all this and a bunch of other resources to everybody later. But thank you so much, everyone who joined. And Nikki and Bethany, thank you both so much. It was such an absolute pleasure to spend this time with you. And thank you for making yourselves available.
Thank you for hosting.
You guys, find me on LinkedIn. Let's connect. I want to keep the conversations going. There were some really good questions that we didn't get to answer, so let's answer them in chat in the DM. Okay, bye guys.
Bye, friends.